What's up, YouTube? ProTech here, back with another high-level analysis game. This is what I would consider the game of the day from yesterday's stream. So on this map, it's pretty difficult to do anything like super aggressive. So most of the time you just want to opt for eco sorts of plays, macro sorts of plays. So this game, the opponents were Terran Random, and we have now identified that it's TZ. There are a bunch of different variants that I use when I'm playing against TZ. The biggest threat that you have to worry about, especially if you're playing the European server is very well known for spamming Hellions and Zerglings. This has just been a thing for I don't know how many years. Long time. But you don't see it every game. And oftentimes, if you just take a look at the nameplates, you can kind of gauge whether you're going to see that or not. So the variant that I opt for in this game is, two Zerg is just it's a weak composition. It doesn't really function. Much like two Protoss or whatever. So the approach that I decided to take in this game was to go for a low Zergling count with a Baneling nest and just get drones. It isn't ideal against TZ, but one of the things that can happen on this map is, like, for example, if you see that the Terran player has expanded on the low ground here, and the Zerg player has expanded back here, which is almost always what that will mean if you see this command center here. Man, that is a really fast spire. I didn't realize it was that quick. Golly, 318. Anyway, so typically what it will mean is that the Zerg player is taking the back base, and this means that the Zerg player wants to play a heavy macro sort of play. But you can also run into a situation where, players will think that, and then they'll do like a heavy Zergling spam, right? So that's sort of the idea behind this build. Probably a good idea to scout in some way if you opt for this type of a style. But I mean, honestly, this is just a gamble. It's a big gamble. That's really all this is. Maybe you get away with it, maybe you don't. So because I haven't seen any pressure here, I'm in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so it's either going to be some kind of a two-base swell, right, which is why you see me queuing up the lings here, or it's going to be some super tech-heavy play. If in this game I had thought that it was some kind of tech-heavy play, you would have seen me building spores by now. But instead, what I was assuming was it was going to be some kind of like 2-base, you know, maybe with Roach and Hellions or something like that. And so crank out the units, whatever. And then use the Spire to clean up, you know, if it's like a Roach play or something like that. Got a pretty decent surround. Also, remember, I'm playing in super high ping, so trading is very difficult. I see the mutas and immediately build the spires, or the spores. But I was not expecting that. That is incredibly fast, and it's not something that you typically will see. And so it's kind of an interesting perspective, because with Mutalist that quick, you can kind of see the situation that he's in here, right? So he's got 8 mutts. 8, 9, 10. So he's got 11 mutts. He's got third base going up. He's got +1 weapons, halfway done. So yeah, this build that he did is actually pretty strong. It's pretty good. But if you go for this type of an open, you're kind of leaving your teammate out to dry, right? If we had done some kind of like, you know, 2-base play, which is very common in team games, maybe not so much on this map, his teammate probably would have died, and we probably would have killed them before the mutas came out, right? But again, it's this map. You have the pocket base. It's relatively safe. So most players are going to opt for macro sort of play. But anyway, so you can see, I mean, we were both not expecting this. If we were expecting this, we would have had spores. And to be honest, I'm not really at any sort of advantage. Like, the Terran player is spamming. Like, if we take a look at the Terran player's composition here, we can see three Cyclones and a bunch of Hellions. He isn't feeding his teammate his gas, though. If he was, this gas count wouldn't look like that. It would be, you know, over here or whatever. And so, actually, in this particular game, it would have been a better approach for the Terran player to just spam Blue Flame Hellions and then just give all of his gas to his teammate, because then his teammate would be able, because you can see he's got 1,000 mineral, but he didn't have any gas. And with the way that this game has opened up and how fast those initial mutas came out, if his teammate had fed him, he probably would have been able to just straight up kill us. So I chase him down there. You know, a lot of time if you show overconfidence, people will just back down. Believe it or not, it's true. But we're in a pretty bad situation here. Mutalist mech is very, very, very difficult to deal with, as to Zerg. So the only real thing that we have going for us here is that the Terran player is still on 2-base, but our teammate is on 3-base. And like the biggest difference of what we got going on here and why I can't take a third is because the opponents have the hard counter to my composition, but my teammate is only just now cranking out the Hydras. So taking a third base is basically impossible because Mutalisk versus Mutalisk Cyclone, yeah, that doesn't work. You do have to have a teammate in order for you to be able to take a third base. So pretty much all you can do is just keep building mutas and then just kind of hope that, you know, at some point your teammate will have an army that will allow you to take a third. Or your opponents are positioned in a way where you can make plays like that, where I put the 2 spores at the third base as it's building. But very much so in this game, we are in a situation where it's pretty unknown. I don't know what's going to happen. I feel like we're playing at a huge disadvantage. The other thing that we do have going for us is that our teammate went for a quick hive, and getting out parasitic bomb to deal with the Mutalisk is really, really good in this situation. So here we go once again. Our teammate still doesn't really have enough of an army value. Like the Mutalisk count he is in favor, right? Because he did like that build that he did, that 313 Spire, whatever, just naturally means that he's going to have a higher count the whole game. Plus, he gets to take his additional economy for free because our teammate still doesn't really have an army value to contest. When they come and kill my third, we can't do anything, right? Because there's not enough army here. So Zerg player has 1/1 on his mutas. He has more mutas. You can't fight this army. Just can't fight it. So this is kind of what I was describing in a previous video, like when one of the biggest problems that you have when you're playing solo queue is taking a third. So we're quite literally in a situation where we just kind of have to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait so that we can actually fight the army with our teammate who has an army. So now he has the Vipers, which is a huge game changer. This actually gives us means to move out on the map. So very well played. And basically, those Vipers are making the Mutalisk completely worthless, so I can dive on top of the Cyclones, and his teammate can't do anything about it. So there he gets the P-Bomb off on the Mutas. Gets another really good Blinding Cloud. As soon as he gets that Blinding Cloud, I dive in on top of the army. So the Viper here was definitely the savior of the game, right? But you can just imagine, like, if I had tried to... I got a little confused there. You saw me microing my mutas. I thought, for whatever reason, I thought that parasitic bomb was on my army. So kind of bad micro. But you can just imagine, like, if I had tried to, like, go and fester, or if I had tried to go, you know, rush up to parasitic bomb, we just would have lost, because we would not have had an army, right? So this is when you find yourself in this particular situation. If I have a weaker teammate, we don't win. I think the way that I played this game in the early stages of the game was right. I don't think it was wrong. So you can just imagine if we have a teammate who's weaker than this teammate, you just can't, there's nothing you can do. Because, like, in the early game and the mid game, TZ is just stronger than 2 Zerg by a million miles. Battle mech. Battle mech, lings, and mutas. Basically just the king in the early game and the mid game. But ever since the Vipers came out, now this has given me so much breathing room. I can go up to 4th base, and now I have a better economy than my counterpart, right? The other muta player. Now, what's going through my mind in this game is that I have to stay as far away from the Mutalist, because if I'm not mistaken, his unit count is much higher than mine still, right? 35 mutas, 33. So it's not too bad, but I think his upgrades are better. He's got 2-1, I've got 1-2. Oh, which, by the way, he screwed up the sequence, for those of you who don't know this. The sequence when you're upgrading your mutas and muta versus muta is he went for 2 carapace, but the diminishing return doesn't justify that upgrade. So the sequence of upgrades is, if it's muta versus muta, you go carapace, weapons, weapons, carapace. That's the sequence. And then, because, like, right now, if I wanted to, even though he has more mutas, I would win the engagement because I have more efficient upgrades. So the whole game plan here is just to kind of poke and prod and, you know, just kind of hope that our teammate utilizes his... And then I think I just saw Vipers there, right? Yeah, okay. So now I see the Vipers, and this kind of changes everything. I have to stay away from those Vipers. I built a bunch of spores here in case he, you know, decides to dive. Because at this point, now that he has those Vipers, I have to stay away from his army. I cannot get anywhere near it. So fortunately for us, on the left side of the map, our teammate is winning his battles, right? So again, number one most important thing, keep track of that army and get away from it. And one of the things that dawned on me in this game, I've actually been in this scenario a million times over, but this is the first time where I actually used a little brain power and came up with a solution for this situation. Because you can go Viper into the Muta Viper, but it's kind of gimmicky, right? It's like, you know, you think to yourself, there's got to be a better answer than that. So later on here, you'll see what I do. Well, actually, you can see it in the production tab here. I've gone for the Infestor. Because with his composition, right? Muta Viper. If I go for Viper myself, which I could, you're putting uncertainty into the fight, essentially, right? And if I go Infestor, I am guaranteeing an outcome. And that is that I'm going to win the fight. Even if I lose all of my mutas in the engagement, because I have the Infestor, I will always win this fight. So to me, in my mind, that is a solution. Also, another nice thing about going for Infestor here is that you can use Microbial Shroud. Because like your teammate, my teammate here is dedicated to Hydra Viper, right? Very gas intensive. And also when you start including Infestors, the ease of execution diminishes, right? It's hard to micro all of that. So if you go for Infestors, the other thing you can do against these Mutalisk is Microbial Shroud, which is a 50% damage reduction. It's a little orange cloud that you put over the army, and it's a 50% damage reduction for a pretty extended period of time. So, going forward after this game, I have concluded that that will be the answer if I find myself in that situation where it's Muta Viper versus Muta Viper. Instead, I'm going to go Muta Infestor. And then I built like the Ultralist in here just because I want to crank out some kind of ground army that can pressure additional bases. Because it's become very apparent in this game that the Zerg player is in no way playing a ground army. And you can usually tell this by how much static D they put down. You know, oftentimes people will put down static D, but if they overbuild the static D, that can kind of tell you that it's just going to be air and nothing else. So going Ultra Ling can deal with this type of static D. But anyway, I don't even know what the muta counts are now. He's got 55 muta. I've got 33 muta. Drone count is the same. The only difference is that I have the Infestor. And he has the Vipers. So, you know, we're very much in one of those situations where it's just kind of like a stalemate and you just kind of wait. Either you make the first move or they make the first move, whatever happens. And in this case, they make the first move. But anyway, just as an important note, you can see, like, with my army, you stay away from the Vipers. As soon as you lose those mutas, you're going to get screwed. Now, this is actually the first time I've actually done this composition. I know that sounds weird, but it's actually true. I mean, I probably did it back in Woolen Hots, but not in LOTV, so my micro, I kind of got fumbled a little bit here. Plus, I'm playing at 400 ping, so you really don't want the games to be going into macro like this when your ping is so high. Anyway, the point being, I kind of screwed up the micro here. I kept like re-hotkeying everything, trying to get everything right. But you'll see I keep the infestor in the general vicinity. You see how I got my army back, and I keep the infestor near the Viper and the Hydra. Like, I'm just not willing to go in with my mutas because I don't want to get P-bombed, right? So Zerg player makes a pretty smart play here by countering, and I just commit here because I want to try and mitigate as much damage that my teammate is going to take from this. I want to buy as much time for my infestors to walk across the map. Sent my queens to, you know, and while it all looks goofy, the whole point of it was to keep those mutas in this area so that it would buy time for my shit to come back to the map, or across the map back to our base, right? And so you can see kind of how that panned out. So all of his mutas are here, and then my infestors are here. That's a good situation to be in, because if I had not done that, this dies, this all dies, this probably dies by the time my shit gets back. And here comes the money fungal. Ugh. I mean, we get there. Oh my god, dude. Beautiful. Beautiful. R-U-E Riatarted. So anyway, I would say that that was the game of the day yesterday, and that is the high-level analysis video for you guys today. Thank you all very much for tuning in. If you guys are enjoying the content, do consider a donation. Liking, subscribing, all of that information is down below. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.